Good afternoon and a really, really warm welcome to today's 30-minute introduction to mindfulness. My name's Susie from This Can Happen, and I'm really delighted to be facilitating this session for you today with the wonderful Susan Peacock, who you should be able to see. Hello, Susan. I just wanted to very quickly say thank you so much to our This Can Happen sponsors, A&O, GSK and Northern Trust, for helping us put on this session for you all today. I'm not going to talk for very long because this is only a sort of half-hour session. So just to say that this session is being recorded, so don't worry if you miss it, because you will receive a copy of it via email tomorrow. Without further ado, I'm absolutely delighted to hand over to Susan.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susie. And thank you to all of you for carving out this time in what I'm sure is a busy day. A really warm welcome. I'm sure some people are starting their day. For some people, it's the middle of the day, and some people it may be later in the day. Now, what is fascinating is seeing how mindfulness has gained so much interest over the last while. So just to give you a quick bit of context, my background is actually as a television and radio producer, where I was intrigued by resilience. That led to me studying psychology. I then worked just on the outskirts of London in a university for 10 years in their Centre for Wellbeing. And 10 years ago, I set up Live Work Well, and it was on a little bit of a wing and a prayer, seeing where this was going to go. And it is amazing seeing how many organizations are embracing the importance of people's well-being. And today, I hope, gives you just a little taste of how mindfulness may be beneficial for you. So some really interesting clients that I've worked with, some great projects supporting teams and organizations to weave this into everyday life. So what we will be covering today, we'll be looking at what mindfulness is, why has it gained so much momentum, why is it relevant in 2021, and how can mindfulness benefit you? Now, just to set the scene, in our busy days, we are not short of distractions. We live in a digital age where our phones, which are a wonderful resource, can be a source of huge distraction. So, if you look at the next slide, we are in a digital age. I wouldn't want to be without my phone, without my computer. In fact, we would not be able to connect if that wasn't possible. But right now, my phone is actually on the floor and I've switched off notifications. And I would invite you to do the same. You've carved out this half hour, and when I work with organizations, we look at how debilitating this constant multitasking actually is. So give yourself the opportunity to really invest in your well-being for the next 30 minutes. And I think we would all recognize that in the midst of a global pandemic, we are living with a lot of uncertainty. And uncertainty fuels anxiety. There's a lot of stress at the moment. So how do we navigate that? Many of us have had our routines disrupted. Work and home life boundaries have blurred. Some people are living on their own. Some people are in crowded spaces. That's had an impact. So how do we just shine a light on what will support me in how I show up? And that then has huge benefits for those around you, both in your personal and in your professional life. Now, alongside this, what's fascinating is seeing how mindfulness has gained momentum. And let's face it, this comes out of an ancient contemplative tradition. It's been around for 2,600 years. And yet, we are waking up to how beneficial this can be. And I think one of the factors that plays a key role in this is the neuroscience. And we are in our infancy at understanding our brains, but a lot of the research is proving very promising. And what is interesting is on the next slide, you'll see how 20 years ago, there were less than 10 publications coming out per annum on mindfulness. This has gone right up, and we are now, well over 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 per annum. And this is starting to show some of the benefits of weaving mindfulness into your very busy days. So I would be curious to hear from a couple of you, and maybe you could just type into the chat box, the Q&A box. What do you think of when you hear the word mindfulness? I'd love to hear what this means to you. And as those come in, Susie will just read them out to us.
Sometimes there's a little delay, Susan, as the things come from the Q&A box to me. So let's give it a second. Oh, here we go. So we've got calm, being aware and present, in the moment, noticing stuff happening right now, switching off, slowing down, self-reflection, a chance to take a pause, stillness, meditation, watching what I say and do, quiet place, peace, taking time out. Oh, having to focus on a raisin. There you go.
Okay. I won't be introducing you to any raisins today. Wonderful. Great. Thank you, Susie. And thank you to all of those who've shared your thoughts. What is interesting is 10 years ago, when I used to ask people what mindfulness meant, 1 or 2 people would raise their hand. And it's lovely hearing how many people have an awareness of mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is something you can read about, you can talk about, but it's actually having the experience of mindfulness that is the game changer. So what I'd like to invite you to do is to experiment with a practice and just give it a go. It may feel a bit weird doing this remotely with a group of people that you haven't connected with before. So all you need to do is take a moment to get comfortable. And as you settle into this moment, become aware of the support beneath you. So really sensing your feet on the floor, and way beneath the floor, the earth. Becoming aware of the soles of the feet, really anchoring you. Perhaps noticing where your body is held by the chair. And so often we hold on to a lot of tightness and tension, just releasing into the surface beneath you. You may decide to do this practice with your eyes open, and if open, just lowering the gaze, allowing there to be a soft focus. Or you may choose to close the eyes, knowing that this is an opportunity to fall awake and to be fully present in this moment. And as you settle, as you arrive, become aware of the natural rhythm of your breath. Knowing that you don't need to control or alter the breath in any way. It's more a case of simply noticing that breathing is happening. Becoming aware of the cool air as you breathe in and the slightly warm air as the breath leaves the body. You may well notice that your mind has wandered. That's perfectly natural, perfectly normal. Each time you notice that your mind has wandered, just bring the attention back to the feet on the floor, the seat in the chair, or the natural rhythm of your breath. and exploring, being curious. What do I notice? Perhaps it's the breath, the cool air in the nostrils, the rise and fall of your chest, or the muscles of the abdomen. But just noticing. And now, as this practice draws to a close, widening that beam of awareness to include a sense of the whole of your body, an awareness of where you are right now, an awareness of the light in the room, even through closed eyes, perhaps opening your eyes, noticing the space around you, and becoming aware of us connecting in this way, this group of people. And take a moment to just reflect on what you noticed. And again, just typing that into the Q&A box. Love to hear what some of the observations were as we did a very brief practice. So as those come in, Susie will then read some of them out. And what is important to know is there's no right or wrong way of doing this. Whatever your experience is your experience. So it's a case of just becoming aware.
Right, we've got heavy body. I am noticing myself relaxed, chilled, my breathing slowed, stillness, calmness, rain outside the window, that I felt tired, mind wandered frequently, peaceful, mind is all over the place, calming, calm, lots of calms and relaxed, so that's good. Birds chirping.
Sorry, birds chirping, lovely, thank you, Susie. So what's great to hear is this complete range. So some people found it quite calming, that sense of connecting with your breath really enables you to connect with the relaxation response. What was also interesting was hearing how some people's minds wandered, and I'm going to describe why this is the case in a moment. So on the next slide, you'll see that we've got a definition of mindfulness, which is present moment awareness. Awareness of the birds outside, the rain, the body heavy, the breath, the wandering mind. And really important is this idea of without judging. And in my work as a psychologist, what I'm amazed by is just how harsh we are on ourselves. So if we're able to notice the wandering mind and then bring the focus back again and again, it's a little bit like a physical workout. You know, when you think of going for your first ever run, you come back hot and bothered, you don't particularly feel that you want to continue with that. Sometimes with something like mindfulness, you sit down and you think, oh, my mind's all over the place. And that can feel quite difficult. The more you engage with this practice, the fitter, the more agile your mind becomes. And on the next slide, you'll see something that for me would be one of your key, if you could take one thing away from you today, I would hope that this stays with you. And that is that we have two neural modes operating in our brain. The one where you see green and blue is what's called the narrative network, the thinking part of the brain. The other, the yellow and the red, is what's known as the direct experiential network. So it's being able to sense, feel what's happening in your body, notice the sounds, feel the temperature. And this paper, which came out in 2007, was a seminal paper in the mindfulness world, because what it showed is that when you connect with sensations, that direct experiential network, you can quieten the thinking part down. Now, really important to know that thinking is important. We don't need, it's not about getting rid of thinking, but we can get caught up in a lot of thinking, which can lead to overthinking, which can lead to rumination, which often doesn't serve us well. So, an example is, I'm sure I'm not the only one on this call who from time to time will wake up at 2 in the morning. Bing, there's a thought. And before you know it, that thought has swept you away. What can be really helpful in that moment is to notice the sensations in your body, to connect with either your breath or an awareness of what it's like to be lying down, the sheets beneath you, the cool air. And each time your mind wanders, you come back to the sensations. And that's when, as I was guiding you in the practice, your feet on the floor, that can be a really helpful way of just grounding yourself. If you receive an angry email, or you're having a Zoom call or Teams meeting via, on the internet, and somebody responds in a way that you weren't expecting, coming back to the sensations, whether it's the feet on the floor, your breath, your posture, can really support you well. So on the next slide is the image that you will have seen as you signed up for this session. And this idea of, is your mind full of to-dos, to just, things you're going to do later, things you've done earlier, or are you aware of where you are right now? Your feet on the floor, the support around you, beneath you, the air. And if you think of this person walking in the park, there's this sense of going for a walk, but are you present or are you distracted? And there's research that indicates our mind is distracted 47% of the time. That's half our lives that we are not fully present for. And as you become aware of that, you can notice the wandering mind. That's going to happen. Congratulate yourself and come back. And there's an article that the title of it is "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind," because often our mind wanders to the problems, to worries. And that comes from the fact that we are a species who have what's called a negativity bias. We are scanning for threat all the time. And so in a period like this, where our uncertainty, our anxieties have been escalated, we are ever more prone to be scanning for what could go wrong. And it's not about getting rid of that, but it's noticing how easily we get swept away by that. A very useful way of countering that is to just notice in an average day. I often do it first thing in the morning. What are 3 things right now that I feel grateful for? And you might even want to do that in this moment. Just a light touch awareness of, what am I grateful for right now? And what is interesting about that is it doesn't take very long, it doesn't cost you anything, and yet research indicates that if you keep that up for 21 days, your brain starts to notice the positive more easily. Keep it up for 10 weeks, and again, the research suggests that people have fewer visits to the GP, so their immune systems improve, they exercise more, and they indicate a greater sense of well-being. So if we now look at the next slide and just start to break down, so what is mindfulness? And as you've probably got a sense from this practice that we've just done, it's present moment awareness. Awareness of where I am right now, noticing the sensations in my body. Can I be fully present with that right now? It's stepping out of autopilot. And I'm sure we've all had experience of driving from A to B and realizing I wasn't aware of the journey here. So the next point of the slide is stepping out of autopilot and then noticing what is happening in your mind, in your body, which is exactly what you were commenting on earlier, that sense of heaviness in the chair, of feeling the air on your skin, of noticing what it's like to release some of the tension. You know, many of us are sitting hunched over laptops a lot of the time. This is not going to enable us to send a better email or to create a better proposal. Relaxing that, just being aware, is the first step to any process of change. And the next point, recognizing that thoughts are not facts. You know, if you think of an email coming in, we don't take that as the truth. Sometimes we just automatically delete the email. But do we do that with our thoughts? Or do we get swept away and create a whole story about something that we might have actually not assessed accurately? And then this idea of responding skillfully versus an automatic reaction. As I was saying earlier, we are a species who are inclined to notice the threat, and we are being triggered. And what we are exploring is, how do we become aware of this option of responding more skillfully? So we get triggered. You know, think of an email that comes in, you know, is not what you were expecting. You get triggered. That is part of being human. Rather than immediately writing a response and hitting the send button and then having to deal with the ramifications of it, what can be helpful is, okay, this email's really jangled me, wasn't what I was expecting. I'm feeling quite riled, quite hurt, quite upset, whatever it is. Can I just take a pause? And that pause may be just a minute or so. It may be that I'm going to get up and go for a quick walk. And it may even be that I'm going to leave this in my draft box and come back to it tomorrow. So some emails need to be responded to quickly, and some emails need time. And this applies to just about everything. You know, in terms of conversations we're having with people, when somebody says something that wasn't as you planned, living with a lot of uncertainty, how do I see what's actually going on here and then navigate that skillfully, rather than just jumping in with some tried and tested way of doing something that may have been relevant and worked well in the past, but isn't necessarily as helpful in this moment. Now, the next slide is exploring how 14 minutes is 1% of your day. And I know that for me, carving out at least 14 minutes a day so that I can really enable my mind to be as agile, for me to connect with what it is like to be in the moment, feels an incredible investment for the rest of my day. And there's a lovely saying, which is, how you start your day is how you live your day, how you live your day is how you live your life. And for many people, a question that may well come up is, when should I practice? So for some people, first thing in the day is really helpful. For some people, maybe later in the day, maybe these transition moments. So a few thoughts. You know, investing these 14 minutes a day can help you feel more grounded, help you feel more settled. A little bit the way we started this session today. Pausing can enable you to see things how they are, rather than, oh, I've been quite triggered, and now we engaging from a position of fear or anxiety or being a little bit defensive. In our busy days, creating spaces makes such a difference. And these don't need to be long periods of time. It can be just this a moment of looking out of the window, noticing a transition between my day in front of my computer doing work and other activities in the day. So those transition points within this very blurred life that we're living at the moment. A sense of awareness and presence. You know, how do I take my space? And then being fully present. One of the greatest gifts you can give anyone is your full attention. So really being able to connect with, this is where I choose to place my attention. my mind may wander off. And when that happens, you congratulate yourself for having noticed and then come back. And as we were discussing earlier, this ability to notice and savor what is good in your life. So that three good things exercise, it's not just a quick checklist, it's being able to call it to mind and to savor it. So I thought before we open it up for questions, just a moment to do a brief pause, which is something you can weave in to very busy days. So get comfortable in your seat or standing, feel your feet on the floor, and you may want to place your hands on your abdomen, or you may want to just do this with your hands alongside your body. Just take a deep breath in and release the breath. Another breath in and releasing. Another 2 breath cycles. And as this very brief pause draws to a close, taking a moment to really congratulate yourself for having carved out this time, and know that as your day unfolds, this ability to connect in the present moment is always available to you. So we're now going to open it up to questions, comments, observations, and I'd love to hear anything that would be helpful to you. So Susie,
thank you so much, Susan. That was fantastic. So I know, yeah, we don't have much time, but we have had a couple of questions. So here we go. How do we stop being so harsh on ourselves, start to find that sense of self-worthiness through mindfulness?
Great question. And I really do believe that, you know, there are 3 key aspects to mindfulness. One is awareness, one is curiosity, and the other one is kindness. And I think the first step is noticing how harsh we are on ourselves. And it might be, as you weave these 3 things in that you're grateful for, to think of one thing that you're grateful for in yourself. And another exercise that can be quite helpful is be aware of, we all have an inner mentor and an inner critic. Which are you feeding? So to be aware of, yeah, I'm fueling the critical part of me, and what would be helpful to nurture that inner mentor? And it could be helpful to give thought to somebody who you know has got your back, who supports you. So calling that person to mind and then drawing on, well, how would they help you? And lastly, before we move off this question, it can be helpful to think, how would I treat a best friend? If they had this issue, what would I be saying to them? So I hope that's helpful. Thank you for the great question.
Okay, thank you. Can you do your 1% 14 minutes whilst walking? Can you meditate and walk?
Lovely, lovely question. You know, in a lot of meditation retreats, which is what people do when they are wanting to really deepen their practice, there are 2 key practices. One is focusing on the breath, and the other one is a walking meditation. Because when you think of it, every step you take, there's so much that happens. So you may well be somebody who wants to do you could call it a moving meditation, or you could think of it as an aimless wandering. So sometimes I encourage people who are taking part in trainings that I do to put their phone aside. Some people say, well, I need to take it with me in case I get lost. If you do, that's fine. Put it in your pocket. And then go and just aimlessly wander. Notice what comes into your awareness. Because as soon as we open up to the sensations of our body, of moving, you start to connect with a lot more around you. So it could be walking, it could be running, it could be yoga, wonderful ways of connecting with this moment and what's happening in your body. Thank you. Another brilliant question.
Okay, and then we've had a few questions asking your view on mindfulness apps.
Okay. So I actually have a blog on my Live Work Well website, which you're welcome to go and have a look at. And that lists the 7 apps that people I find very helpful. But a couple just off the top of my head, Unmind is one, Calm is another, Headspace is another, Insight Timer, like you gain an insight. Insight Timer is a free app, as is the Oxford Mindfulness Centre app, which is a great resource. There's a lot available to you there. And I was talking to somebody earlier this morning, and what is important is to find an app that you like, that resonates with you. So some people love Headspace and Andy Puddicombe's voice. Some people like the variety of another, range of voices. So check out that blog and experiment. Most of them offer you a free 10 to 14 day trial period.
That's good. Oh, I know we're running out of time. This is a good one. How do you keep focusing on your breathing from turning into feeling short of breath? You know how.
Great question. Yeah. Great question. Because that it often comes up, and what that is an example of is we've then I'm aware of my breath. Oh, am I breathing too fast? Am I breathing too slowly? And what that is an indication is we've now got into thinking about the breath rather than just experiencing the sensations of the breath. So as soon as you notice that that's happened, congratulate yourself and then come back to a lovely image is just surfing the waves of your breath. The breath comes in, turns around and goes out, comes in again and goes out. So it's not about controlling the breath. It's not about altering the breath, but it's just feeling the breath breathe you. And for some people, the breath is not the most helpful anchor to connect with. And that's why I mentioned the feet on the floor, your posture, your hands, because sometimes our breath, it sort of magnifies how we are feeling. So if you're feeling a bit anxious, it may be, oh, this is kind of heightening that. And when you think of anxiety, we're going up into our thinking. What you want to do is drop into your body. So feeling the support beneath you, feeling the feet on the floor. Hope that has answered that question.
Okay, I'm going for one final question because we're 3 minutes over. Can prayers be used as meditation? As a Muslim, I pray 5 times a day. Can I add the benefit of mindfulness into it?
Lovely, lovely. Thank you for that. Mindfulness comes out of a contemplative tradition. And I think there's a big overlap between this ability to connect with something that's prayerful and that's meditating. And whatever works for you is fantastic. It's that ability to step out of the busyness of being swept away in everyday life. So I think one of the reasons mindfulness has gained the interest is that for many people, it's quite a secular world. So whatever resonates with you is a wonderful way to support yourself, to support your resilience and well-being that then ripples out and benefits others.
Thank you, Susan. And unfortunately, we're going to have to end there, but thank you so much for all your wise words and your practice. Yeah. It was great. And thank you, everybody, for joining us and for all your questions and kind comments. We're really grateful and it makes such a difference. And then finally to say, this session has been recorded. You will receive it by email. And then when I close the webinar now, a really short questionnaire will pop up. It's really helpful to us if you wouldn't mind just filling it in. And then all it is left for me to do is say, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Susan. I'm now going to end the webinar.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time. Bye. Bye.